You're watching continued coverage of the conflict between Israel and Gaza, and at the moment we're listening in to a press conference by the spokesperson of the Israel Defense Forces. He's putting forward his evidence that Israel was not behind an explosion at a hospital in Gaza City. Let's go back and listen in.
That's the logic. And about the next stages of the war, I will not talk about here, of the next stages of the war.
BBC, Jeremy Bowen.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Do you think that the governments that condemned Israel last night will believe your explanation? I'm referring to Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates.
I think all of the countries that you mentioned are watching the BBC carefully and looking carefully what the BBC said. And I hope after our aftermath that shows it was cross-checked and we took the time because we didn't want to be non-reliable and we didn't want us to infect with our credibility. I hope the BBC will now share this investigation and those countries will listen to the BBC, and we will also share United States a more intimate and also United Kingdom a more intimate review so the BBC can show it. And those countries, those Arab countries that you mentioned, which is very important for Israel, of course, from the Abraham Accords and other countries who also would be threatened by Hamas-ISIS ideology, should understand our war. What Hamas-ISIS did on the massacre on Saturday is nothing to do with Islam. People killed babies, people killed families, women were raped, people were beheaded. This is against Islam. This is against Islam. Any Arab country will show me a fatwa that goes with Islam. This is against Islam. Hamas is ISIS. It's not a one terror activity. It's a scale massacre of the governance of the Gaza city, of Gaza, which is Hamas. Hamas made a scale massacre, which is a govern. It's the sovereign. It's a sovereign massacre. This is why Hamas, ISIS, we must fight it.
If I just follow up on that, I mean, you're essentially saying that these Arab governments watched the BBC and made up their minds. They came out with their statements long before I filed. So, I mean, I'm impressed you think we have so much clout in the world, but to be honest, they have their own sources of information, which is why they moved. Those statements came from the highest level, foreign minister and above.
I guess in the first time, because people feel empathy with hearing that someone bombed an hospital, or when they see people are dying. So they go out and do statements, and it's okay. And I'm not blaming, of course.
They're being emotional.
Yeah, I think, and it sounds reasonable. But now, after evidence being shown, and I think it serves Hamas. Hamas is a terror like ISIS. It's media and sword. He wants to go to the media. He wants to be viral. And that creates a viral imagery. So, after the conversation you heard when they say it's Islamic Jihad, he said, okay, now we're going to take the benefit out of it and we're going to show the world. And they know it's going to be viral. So I'm not blaming anybody to showing it. I'm just trying to now fix it. Because we were blamed before that when we're too speed, and two, that we're asking, are you credible? We're taking the time to be credible. Sometimes the speed defects it.
Patrick Kingsley, New York Times.
Thanks, Admiral. I have some technical questions. In your footage that you released last night, some of that footage was filmed by Al Jazeera. Our team assessed that footage, and at least one of the munitions appears to be traveling in a different direction to the one that you assessed in your map. It's traveling northwesterly, not northeasterly, as your map suggests. Second of all, did the IDF fire any Iron Dome interceptors or artillery munitions at 6:59 p.m. From Israel into Gaza? Thirdly, Can you share the intercepted audio of the Hamas members that you just played? I think that would be important for our assessment.
Another question, Patrick.
I know, but we haven't got much time. Hospital officials said that smaller strikes targeted the hospital on Saturday, and that they were warned by phone by Israeli officials to vacate the hospital. Do you have any response to that? And finally, is there any evidence of secondary explosions?
Okay. Let's start with the first thing. Iron Dome, we do not intercept inside Gaza. Okay? Iron Dome, we do not intercept inside Gaza. This is not an Iron Dome issue. Iron Dome is used for preventing the rockets to being hit in Israel. That's the first question. Second question, those independent videos which we showed of the failure that you mentioned are not only the force element of the check. It's not, we didn't base our facts on those independent videos, it's extra. So I hear what the New York Times says, and it's extra. And the reports that you mentioned about telling the hospital to be evacuated earlier days before, I will check it. I do not know the answer. And I want to give you an answer which is incorrect. And you asked about the secondary explosion in the parking lot. What we see here in the picture, and this is the most important thing. Aerial munition doesn't look like that. Aerial munition of Israel would have caused intact to the walls. It would have caused a crater. Okay? And it makes completely logic, as much as we know, that most of this damage was done due to the propellant existence, not just the warhead, because of the short range, because the launches failed.
To be clear, so the propellant caught fire after landing?
Yeah, because those rockets should have been gone far away to Israel, so you have a large existence of propellant.
Sky News, Deborah Haynes.
Thank you very much. I have two questions, please. You said that you believe that the number of casualties has been inflated. Can you give an assessment of what you believe that number of dead and wounded to be? And secondly, regardless how credible the evidence is that you show that this explosion was not caused by an Israeli munition, your enemies are going to still blame Israel, and it's the fact that many Palestinian civilians have been killed since this military operation began. Are you losing the information war? And given how important that is there a potential to maybe change tack? You said this is going to be, well, officials have said it's going to be a long war. Are you not losing it by using so much military power on Gaza Strip while there are civilians there?
Okay. We'll try to answer the second question before that, because I think it's important. The information war is a hard war. It's a hard enemy to win, because this enemy has built his logic very, very wisely, using the population as a human shield. Hamas pictured himself in the world as a charity organization, donating money for the poor Gazan of Hamas. While we see all the money that came to Hamas, most of it goes to tunnels, goes to this scale massacred operation, all the donations from many countries in the world, including Europe. Secondly, we've seen, and also UNRWA had verified it, that Hamas is stealing gasoline, food, and also we found in Israel, during the massacre, the kits of the medical kits were UNRWA kits used by the terrorists. We are fighting something that is hard to explain. He's using the donation that you send, is using the UNRWA possessions that are meant to go to the poor Gazan, those poor Palestinians that were hijacked by Hamas, and he's using it. He took all the gasoline that could have helped for desalination inside the Gaza for 6 days. It could have gone gas for hospitals. He took it to his own infrastructure, military infrastructure, the terror infrastructures that need this gas. This is who we're fighting against. This is who we're fighting against. And we have to win this information war with evidence, not with false, uncredible statements. We have to win it with evidence. We have no other way. We must stay moral. We must play according to international law. We have no other way. Otherwise, we won't be a Democrat liberal country. And this is what we're fighting. It's a Democrat liberal country fighting any Hamas, ISIS controlled Gazan area with innocent civilians, Palestinians, that is using them as a human shield. That is the event. That is the event we're fighting. We have to fight. We cannot live next to our borders with Hamas, ISIS governs that will threaten our civilians and do massacre where you rape women, beheaded bodies, kidnap babies. Do you understand that while we speak, babies are being held in Gaza? Women, young girls that went to a music festival are being held in Gaza. Dead bodies are being held in Gaza. Old people, some of them were in the Holocaust, are held now in Gaza. How come you take old people? How come you take babies? How do you kidnap this kind of more than almost 200 people have been kidnapped? How do you do this? Some of them are foreigners. This is what we're fighting. And now they're going to show videos of those hijacks. They want to terrorize the family. We will not be terrorized. We have our values. We know what we're fighting for. We know what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our country. We're fighting to be, with our values, a moral country that is a Democrat, liberal, Jewish country. This is who we are. We're going to stay here like that.
Exactly. You stopped with this atrocity. You said it yourself, there are Israeli hostages, babies in Gaza, and yet you're still struggling with the information war because Palestinian civilians are being killed in Israeli bombardment. Like, isn't it time to, is there another way? That's what I'm asking. And can you just answer that question about your assessment on the casualties, please? You say it was inflated.
Casualties, inflation, we understand from intelligence, and I will not. We will share it with the governments, and I don't want to say the numbers here. And this is not another round in Gaza. This is not that. It's something else. We understand that the masks have fallen down. We are living next to ISIS governing Hamas state. We cannot live like that. In the world, it's a world problem, not just Israeli problem. It's a world problem. This can shift away, exactly like ISIS. It can shift away to Arab countries, and it can shift away everywhere. I would say cynically that the Gazans should ask Yahya Sinwar, Muhammad Deif, Salah El-Aruri, Marwan Issa, why is it happening to them? And if other countries in the world can make Hamas surrender with no conditions and bring our hijacks back to Israel, show us the way you do that. Show us the way you do that. And we will do that. We understand we have no other way to fight that the way we're fighting.
Andrew Pfeffer at the Times.
I understand this has already been passed on to the Americans and to other Western allies. Were the Americans involved in the examination, debriefing process? And did they at any point provide you with the satellite footage that they have of the area?
No, we used only our systems, Anshul, and we will provide all this information today to the Americans and not just the Americans.
And did you get any known corroboration from any other source outside and the independent video?
We are credible with our information, with our intelligence, with our system. The intelligence is credible all along the intelligence community in the world with the Five Eyes, etc. This would be very, very credible information that any country will rely on. And of course, our footage, imagery, the Air Force way to review things is very, very credible in the world. And those things will show credible to any liberal democracy.
Washington Post, Shira.
Hi, so thank you for this. I have a technical question about the intelligence you got. You said there were people speaking who said the rocket was launched from near Madani to Ahli. So how far were those two locations? That's one. Number two is, what is the rationale of calling the South the safe zone if there are still Hamas operatives there? To what extent is the North the central target right now, and the South at what point? You know, what is the difference between the North and the South in the campaign? Number two. And number three, you are absolutely right. That money has been funneled from Hamas social organizations to military ones. But is it, is Israel's goal to take out Hamas completely? Does that mean only military leaders? Does that mean people who are involved in the social services program? How extensive is that? And if that is everyone, does that not just mean that Hamas, is there really a difference between Hamas and Gaza in that sense?
And we'll start with the last question. I think it's the most important one. There is a completely difference between the Gazan Palestinians and Hamas as a sovereign. It wasn't like that all years. Everybody knows that. It's a completely different thing. And most of the Gazan Palestinians are not Hamas as a sovereign military and politically. But we must take the sovereign, the govern, down. That's for your first question. Then you asked about in the beginning about the intelligence. We understand there is a cemetery nearby, the Ahli al-Mahdani hospital, and they probably fired from the cemetery, as they mentioned themselves in the conversation. And they also refer to an Islamic Jihad failure, which they are using as a propaganda against Israel. And if you can remind me the other question you asked?
The logic of considering the South as safe zone.
Okay.
Hamas is still there.
You're right that Hamas is all along Gaza. But most of its military infrastructure, governing infrastructure are in Gaza City and its area. This is why we're asking to go south to Wadi Gaza. Okay? And that is, it's not for, it's until we finish what we need to finish in this area where it has a governing and military and terrorizing from this area of Gaza City and its peripheral to Israel. But yes, we will attack in all Gaza by intelligence, and we will attack by international law, and before that it will be based on intelligence, and which we will try always to minimize the casualties of civilians.
AFP Patrick.
Yes, with Agence France Presse, this very serious incident just occurred in the hospital. Do you think it will delay or prevent you to launch a ground operation inside Gaza if it's actually what you're planning to?
This is a very serious incident because civilians were casualties. This is why we take it seriously. This is why we took our time to be credible. Again, this is why we took our time to be credible and we didn't jump into statements. So we take it very, very seriously, and I think the world should hold up Islamic Jihad. And everybody knows who's funding Islamic Jihad. Islamic Jihad is 100% funded by Iran. The rockets of Islamic Jihad are funded by Iran. I repeat it. Iran funds Hamas, but it does 100% for Islamic Jihad. Islamic Jihad caused the casualties in the hospital, in Ahli al-Mahdani hospital. The casualties are by Islamic Jihad. The rocket is being funded or delivered from Iran. Iran caused this death in Ahli al-Mahdani hospital in the end of the day.